Okay, I'm back, and so we have already talked about igneous rocks, and then we talked about sedimentary rocks, and now we want to talk about metamorphic rocks. So think about what the word metamorphic means. So what does the word metamorphosis mean? As in a caterpillar metamorphosizes into a butterfly. So the word meta means change. So we're going to take any kind of rock. So it could be an igneous rock, it could be a metamorphic rock, it could be a sedimentary rock, and we're going to somehow alter it. We're going to change it. And that is going to produce a metamorphic rock. So here's some examples of a metamorphic rock. So the first one is called a schist. And so, for example, this is what a granite. If you take a granite and you squeeze it and you heat it, you can turn it into that thing called a schist. Next to it is a slate. And so, for example, the sedimentary rock shale, if you continue to squeeze it and heat it, it can turn into that thing called slate. Then you've also got a thing called gneiss. So it's not gneiss, it's gneiss. And so what it is if you take the thing that's above it, the schist, and then you continue to heat it and you continue to squeeze it, then what happens is that it develops those kind of stripes that you see on there. So that's a particular texture when it comes to metamorphic rocks. And then next to it is marble, and marble is what happens when you take limestone and you heat it, it metamorphosizes into that particular metamorphic rock. So how do you make a metamorphic rock? So you're going to subject it to extreme heat or extreme pressure or hot fluids such as hot water, or it could be all of them. So it could be individually or it could be combinations of those three. But don't melt it. So what we want to do is alter the rock. We don't want to melt it. And so when we apply heat or pressure or hot fluids to a rock, it will start to metamorphosize. Now, one of the hallmark textures of metamorphism is going to be this layering, which we're going to call foliation. Now, don't confuse this with sedimentary layering. So that in the ocean, when like limestone forms or when sandstone, what can happen is it falls down to the bottom of the ocean in layers. So it makes horizontal layers. And so you might think that those stripes on that picture there on the right are layers, and they were formed as the crystals settled to the bottom and then they made the stripes. That's not true. So what those stripes are is they're individual minerals that have been twisted so that they're all flat. So you see in the picture on the left, there's the original rock before it has been squeezed. And you see that one mineral might be this way and another mineral might be this way. But then as you start to apply the pressure on the rock like this, then those minerals will align themselves, and then that's the reason why you have this thing that we're going to call foliation. So where do you find metamorphic rocks? So our definition was it would have to be a place where you have extreme heat or extreme pressure or where you have hot water. So where would that be? So if we look at our model of plate tectonics, well, those same places where you had the igneous rocks you could definitely have metamorphic rocks. So where the plates were sliding underneath each other, so that could cause heat. Okay, you could also have where the plates are being pulled apart, so that would make heat. You'd have the hot spots, so that's where you got heat. But remember, you don't want it to be so hot that it's going to actually melt the rock, because then that's going to produce the igneous rocks. So what we would like would be one of those hot places, but actually right next to it. A place where it's next to the hot spot, but it's not too hot and it's not too cold. It's just right in order to alter whatever rocks were there. Okay, now another way of doing it, though, was hot water. So where could you have hot water? Well, obviously the ocean has water in it, and it's at those ridges where the material comes out. It's going to be hot, and there's going to be water there. So you can have metamorphosis also occurring because of the hot water. We mentioned that under Yellowstone National Park, there's a hot spot, and so there's a lot of water there from groundwater. So that groundwater gets heated up, and again, that can cause metamorphism. So the third way is going to be pressure. And so you could have pressure at a converging zone. You could also have pressure where one plate collides with another plate, and they're both continental. So where it pushes up those very high mountains, you have extreme pressures there, and so you could have metamorphism could occur there as well. But you could also have extreme pressure just by burial. So we mentioned a swamp. So where you've got something falls down and then another tree falls on top of it, as it gets buried further and further underground, the pressure increases on it. So you can have pressure caused by burial. And then finally, you can even have metamorphism as a result of an asteroid impact. So where an asteroid comes in and it smacks the Earth, that produces extreme pressures, also extreme temperatures. So all of these are different places where you can find metamorphism occurring. So how are we going to classify the different kinds of metamorphic rocks? Well, it's the same thing, mineral content and texture. So the texture was that foliation thing. So does it have those bands, so those foliation things where the crystals are oriented, or does it not? So that would be one kind of texture. And then if you notice there, you have different kinds of minerals are inside different kinds of metamorphic rocks. So we mentioned, for example, marble. So marble was metamorphosized limestone. And what is limestone composed of? What was the mineral that you find in limestone? It was calcium carbonate. And it's the stuff that when you put acid on it, it fizzes. So what do you think happens if you put acid on marble? It'll fizz because it's made of calcium carbonate. But then there's another kind of metamorphic rock called quartzite. Take a guess. What do you think it's made of? Quartz. So if you take a sandstone, which is made of quartz, and you subject it to heat and pressure, it can turn into quartzite. Okay? So let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the rock cycle.